Smoke here on 365 Sports. Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, joins us for his weekly segment. And Mack, Chari Mahajer, UCF AD, told us all that we'd be getting a schedule by today, but I haven't seen it yet. Did he jump the gun there? Is it in the offing? Like, when are we going to know what the people are dying to know? This is big news when it happens finally, Mack.
Yeah, so I love Terry. He's a great colleague, and welcome to the Big 12. But that doesn't begin until July 1 of 2023. And I think the more accurate statement would have been Commissioner Yormark's statement while he was out in LA for the championship game, and talked about the end of January. And so I think that is the timeline. I can't remember if we talked about it last week, but I do know that last week I felt like it was end of January and not specifically this date. And so we'll get there, and look forward to like all of our fans, we're looking forward to getting that released. And we don't, just so everybody knows, we don't have it in front of us. And so even if you wanted to ask me a question, I probably, couldn't answer it. It'd be off of maybe distant memory, but the process is we'll get it and have a day or two to look at it and make sure that we're aligned with all of our scheduling principles. And then the conference office will release it. And again, by end of January.
So end of January for the Big 12 schedule. So that gives us a couple of weeks here of maneuverability. Mack, when it comes to the scheduling itself, do teams have any type of input whatsoever, especially given the unique situation that you guys are in, the coming and going of teams over this next year? How does that work in terms of, I'm sure there's teams that would like to play a certain institution or at a certain place at one point, but do you take that feedback? Where do you how does that work?
Yeah, Craig, it's a great question. And so, a while ago, and it's probably, been at least a year, there was a subcommittee that really looked at, the future of football scheduling and, one division, versus two divisions and, scheduling principles, et cetera. And so I was on that subcommittee, and, I think it, if memory serves me correctly, sometime in May or June, spring, summer meetings, we presented that to the entire group of ADs, and, we made the decision obviously on the one division. And, part of that was, what we think is going to happen with the CFP, et cetera, what some of the other conferences were doing. If you remember right, we had the deregulation, where, the Football Oversight Committee said you don't have to have divisions now to play a conference championship game. And so that was all part of it. And then to answer your question specifically, there were discussions about, making sure we kept certain rivalries and that those continue to be played throughout. There were then, conversations on the scheduling principles, and that's where a lot of the input, as we presented them, the subcommittee, the larger group had an opportunity to weigh in, and so the feedback was mainly about, the rivalries and the principles. And so you take all of that and you formulate this a logarithm for the computer, and then it spits it out. And so we'll wait to get that and see what that looks like. And so this idea of fairness, trying to be competitive and I guess the strength of schedule, right? How can that be, fair throughout? We certainly, that's part of the the formula that you put into the computer. You know, it looks at the last 5 years. But I think the biggest piece in terms of, you know, fairness will be the sequencing of it. You know, when do you play and certain people, and what does that look like, you know, home and away. So that's a long answer, but that's really been the process on leading up to end of January.
Do you get like a zonk or something if the machine spits something out and it's kind of made a schedule that's not, you know, great? Can you say like, hey, can we take another pass at this because we don't want to be in, you know, Morgantown and then in Provo 1 week, you know, back-to-back weeks? It's going to happen, I know, but like if you had to navigate that, do you get any of those things, or does it just kind of you have to deal with it as it comes out?
No, you'll spit out some, you know, for example, you'll spit out an iteration, right? You'll double check it against your principles to make sure that it stays true. And you'll get, you know, quite a few varieties of options, and, you know, human eyes then really take a look at it. You know, believe it or not, there is a person, you know, in this space that has a computer formula that does this, has worked with, you know, certainly the Big Ten, has worked with other conferences, is working with our conference. And so, you know, there is a singular person that makes a living doing this. And it's been pretty effective. And we'll see what the final looks like. But, you know, there's principles like, you know, when you think about, you know, 3 of the members we added, you know, Cincinnati, Central Florida, and BYU, those are long trips. They're, you know, similar to West Virginia. So, you know, can't go play those, you know, one of those 4 back-to-back on the road. That shouldn't happen. And if for some reason the computer spits that out, well, we're putting an X on that one and starting again.
So, Mack, there seemed to be like kind of everything sort of coming to some finality as far as like football and just news, and the coaching staff. But then Justin Johnson last week accepts the job at Texas Tech. And then today you guys turn around and announce the hire of A.J. Stewart as assistant head coach and running backs coach, as well as Tyler Hancock as the special teams coordinator. Can you just kind of take us into that process of the last week and trying to finalize this coaching staff and now reaching a point today where hopefully there's not, you know, much more upheaval?
Yeah. So, you know, I think, you know, right after Juice, you know, decided that, you know, it was an opportunity in terms of professional growth and everything that he couldn't pass down. And, you know, we talked about it last time we were on, but, you know, I think, you know, we acted pretty quickly. You know, Coach Aranda knew of AJ, and same with some of our other staff. You know, we, quite frankly, candidly, we had to act pretty quickly. And so even though the announcement is today, you know, it's somebody that we targeted, you know, last week, maybe within 24 hours of the announcement of Juice leaving. AJ is a highly regarded coach, and you know, he had other opportunities other than just ours, other Power 5 opportunities, and so, you know, we were navigating that as well, and, you know, we're grateful that he and Virginia, you know, decided that they wanted to make Waco their home and be part of Baylor. So again, that happened, you know, fairly quickly, and I think we're excited. You know, he's a great addition. Has spent most of his career recruiting within the state of Texas, and so and I think he does a great job, you know, in practice, on field. You know, so I think he'll be a really valuable addition to the offensive staff. And then, you know, as you know, Coach certainly looking at, you know, how we handle special teams in the future, and, you know, knew of Tyler, and that's a name that, you know, was probably brought up, you know, 2 to 3 weeks ago, as we were, you know, thinking about, you know, the additions of Matt Powledge and and others, right, and the entire staff, Coach Robinson, et cetera, how we manage that, navigate that. So, and we think Tyler is a great addition, obviously coming to us from Charlotte, but has spent some time in the Big 12 as well at West Virginia.
Mack, how much of a relief was the win over West Virginia for the men's team, and then to see them turn around and do what they did, literally shooting the lights out at home on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It was a pretty big relief, at West Virginia. And that was a game, as you all know, pretty close and, could have gone either way. And, that would have, it would have felt different, I think, being 0-4 versus 1-3 and, then coming home and, probably playing one of our most complete games at home against, Oklahoma State team. And, to be able to now get to 2 and 3, and tonight, it's a big challenge. Lubbock's a really, really tough place to play, but this opportunity to get back to neutral. I was just having this conversation right before you called. I don't think it's a must win. I think that, but it certainly would feel good to at least get back to neutral.
Yeah, well, and look, sometimes really talented teams can lose their confidence and forget, a little bit how good they are, or like why it's supposed to work. And so those wins that you get, every single one of them in this conference, Mack, there's no breaks. That the fact that Oklahoma State kind of went how it did was wild to pretty much everybody watching, because you don't get games like that where you're comfortable in the last 5 minutes, night in and night out in the Big 12.
Yeah, no, you're right. And, I thought that, Oklahoma State may have been the best game for our three starting guards together. Keontae didn't score a lot of points, but he was really good in terms of, assists, turnovers, rebounds. LJ was able to score the ball, Adam. So I thought those three, played really well together, and maybe the best when you look at the culmination of the three. You can begin to see Jalen Bridges getting some more confidence, and so yeah, a really good game for us, and but the way the Big 12 is, right, you got to get back and ready to play at Texas Tech, which is a really, really good team. They took Texas down to the wire, obviously, in Austin. So it will be a formidable task for us tonight.
Mack, it seems like the last couple of weeks, last week the women were up, the men were down. This week the men are up, the women are down after a couple of losses. I know it's tough for Nikki Collin and company, but your thoughts? They were riding pretty high, it felt like, but now obviously a stat you don't want to see, which is them falling out of the top 25. Just where's your head at as far as women's basketball and what they're facing right now? Yeah,
my head's probably, like them, frustrated. I think that, not to make excuses, but, they've had an inconsistent lineup, and, it was great to see, Asia back, but, that's her first game back, and she certainly wasn't 100%. You could see, some of the rust, and, we had an additional two other players that couldn't suit up, that, again, have played some minutes, and, are players that are developing and certainly give positive minutes. And so there's just been a lot of that this year, and some inconsistency, I think, because of that. And so I know that, Nikki's frustrated, the staff's frustrated. I think our student athletes are frustrated. And so, Craig, this is where you got to double down and really, not be focused necessarily on the result, but be focused on the process, and make sure that your process is right, and that you've got confidence in it, and that you double down on it. And, Nikki is a unbelievable coach, and I think that's, where they're at, just making sure that, hey, the process is right. And if it is, everything else will take care of itself. So there's a lot of games left to be played, and I'm certainly at peace with women's basketball, and to not be ranked in the top 25, that absolutely is not our standard, and anybody over in the Farrell Center would tell you exactly that. But let's make sure we stay true to the championship process, and that we do that at an elite level, and everything else, like I said, will take care of itself.
Matt, last question before we let you go, unless, Craig, you have anything else after this. What would you say, or at least last question for me, what would you say as we're in 2023 now, is the athletic department's biggest project moving forward outside of new arena and all that? But, like, what do you want to be better at departmentally in 2023 and grow?
Yeah, man, that's a really thoughtful question, Paul, and I appreciate it. And, we haven't talked about it much on the show, but we've developed our strategic initiatives for the next 5 years. We've got some executive boards, right, where we're going to process some of that. One of them is Baylor Next. What does it look like given within our athletic department, given all of the deregulation that's going on within the NCAA, and how name, image, and likeness has really had an impact on our industry. And so trying to navigate all of those things, I think number one is for us is staying true to our culture. And we're in unprecedented times where all of us, including myself, can become so distracted because so much is being thrown at us. And our natural reaction is to maybe double down on strategy. And don't get me wrong, that's so important. But strategy without culture equals zero. And so, doubling down and making sure that our culture continues to be right. And so that's probably, it's not a specific answer, Paul, but that's probably the biggest thing for us is how do we handle all of the distraction and stay true to our culture, stay true to our core values, and make sure we don't lose sight of that. Because if we do, I don't care, what kind of scheme, X's and O's strategy we have, we're not going to be able to compete at the highest level. And I think that's why we've been able to compete at the highest level. We don't have the best resource. Now we have really great resources, but we know where our budget is versus some of the others, et cetera. And we found a way to compete, and strategy's been a part of it, but culture's been the biggest part of it.
Mack, thank you so much. Always great to talk to you. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, with us. And yeah,